Welcome to our very first episode of Skill Talk, a podcast. Slide your headphones on, sit back, and enjoy the show. And tune in next week where we deep dive into reports and using those reports to build a keep that's best suited for your play style. First, I want to introduce our group here. It's sort of crazy that you guys said yes to this, so thank you for agreeing to this. But I think the community really needs a podcast about, well, I guess I can start with seeing Wick's YouTube. He interviewed Sing, and what I really loved about it is that there was just a pureness for the game, and I was totally sucked in the first 10 seconds, and there's no BS when it comes to Wick. And no politics, just was who is this guy? How do I not know him? I want to collaborate with him. And certainly you're taking what I think can be frustratingly complex mechanics for a lot of players. I'd say for the majority of the game, and you're simplifying it and making it so easy to digest and understand. Even just posting a picture of a battle scene from a film. It's it's that easy. It's that's why horses are fast. Got it. And I mean,
That's super kind. You're being too nice, honestly. But I'll just say you're being way too kind. But I'll just say that was the most frustrating thing when I started playing. Cause I'm a newer player. I mean, I will say I did Warp Zone, getting better by being able to join RSP for a little while when Sing was there. But that is the most frustrating thing about Evony, is that there is nobody and nothing talking about, for a new player, you don't even understand what any of this means. Why does ground beat range? Why does range beat mount? None of that made any sense to anybody. And I went online, I tried looking at YouTube channels, and I would watch YouTube channels and people were talking about people that I had no idea who they were, and I'm a C4, and I'm who is this guy? Who are they talking about? And then you try to join the Discord groups, and some of the Discord groups, I'd be in C4's Discord group, and people would be in there from the older continents, and they'd be bashing on you. I'd be oh yeah, this is the thing I found, and then it was just really frustrating that it was always about people and not about the game. And that's one of the things that is just so mind-blowing to me, is that, and I'm so excited, and thank you so much for taking the initiative here, and thank you so much for reaching out to do this. It's about talking about the game, and it's about wanting it to be about the game, and that's the most exciting thing. And really a podcast to just discuss what's going on in the game, since so many people are so involved in it. It's so overdue.
Yep. Agreed. And that that really came across when I saw your YouTube. I didn't even know I was missing that pureness of the game until I heard your interview with Sing, and I was just yes, I want more. I need more of this. It was super inspirational and a little bit nostalgic because, and I can introduce Sing next. I mean, probably the most impactful player the game has ever seen and probably will ever see. He, hearing him talk, I was just top players, big teams, they're setting a tone for the game. And Sing set a tone that was super open to learning. And I miss that. And it does seem there's some gatekeeping going on, and no one can have a new original thought, because unless they're, somebody, you can't have that original thought. So just having a space where we can entertain a thought, even if we don't accept it, and just people can ask whatever they want. I think people that don't ask questions are, that's troublesome to me. So asking questions, whatever they are, I had a quota, my first teacher in Evony, was you can ask me 20 questions a day and then you're done. I was okay, I'll get my list ready. And that's how I learned, and trying to stay humble as possible. So anyway, welcome Wick and Sing. Like, it's so like bonkers that you're here. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to be here. Yeah, no, just I guess right off the topic of this content not really being available to the public. It's true. It's been like that for a long time, and I think like being in like the fighting grounds of the top teams and understanding like kind of like I guess it's almost like you're nationalist where you're like really protecting your team and the ideas that your team are producing, and you're like pro your team only. So when you're making content, you're like, okay, I want to show what this team can do. I want to like talk about the game, but I also don't want to hurt ourselves in this rat race to become number one. And that was the reason why, at least me, like a lot of my content started to go away from actually discussing the mechanics of the game and like ideas and thoughts and experiments, and it was more so like I think most teams like they kept every advantage to themselves. I think that's changing a bit. I don't entirely know. I haven't kept up much, but I mean, I have no incentive to keep anything from anyone anymore. So I think having a forum like this is healthy for the community and the game generally. So yeah, I think this is an awesome thing we're doing.
It's so true what you're saying, because they're like whenever you're up against and you have like, especially with you and RSP, you had like these rivalries that were, I mean, it was like Moby Dick, the live version, like your great white male, and you were like obsessed with meeting these people, and I loved it. I love the competitive nature. That's what Sing's like completely benevolent, kind, sweetheart of a nature belies, is this incredibly competitive guy underneath. And I love, that's why I think why everybody gravitates you, because you're competitive and everybody wants to root for you, but at the same time you're not pompous or egotistic. Like none of those words apply to you, which is amazing and so incredibly rare in this game. I mean, it's so funny, like I'll be on like world chat or server chat for SSBS for like 2 minutes, people are like, you're an arrogant a-hole, and I'm like, thank you. Look, I know. I'm like, you're not telling me something I don't know. Thank you. It's like I'm waiting, and it's so funny because every person is the same. Like first they assume like I'm some rich kid with like mommy's credit card, and then it's like if you write the mommy credit card line everybody uses, then it's like the you're an a-hole. You'd be decent, but you're an a-hole, and I'm like, okay, I could be the a-hole. I've never had a problem with that. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Like, we'll be the dark team, we'll be the dark horse in every race, but at the same time, it's like what people don't understand is that that's the part of the game I hate the most. And Sig knows me in real life. Like, he knows some of the stuff I've been dealing with or put up with in real life, and he understands. It's funny, he turned to me this recently, he goes, yeah, you definitely use this game to get away from like the real life crazy. Like this is, and that's why whenever I come into the game and then there's drama or crazy stuff, I mean, if I told you stories, I could never do it on this podcast, but I'll tell you for example, off hundreds. You'd be like, whoa, wait, what? You're what? You're dealing with what? That can't be real. Like, it's insane. And then you get to the game, and you're just like, I just want to go and just beat somebody with the game using your intellect. And that's the one beautiful thing about Evony. As much as you can hate top games, the thing you have to give this game is that it gives intellect and attention to detail and 3D spatial reasoning a leg up on the people who can't. Because I'd say right now in the game, there's more people that have infinite funds and they're either closing in on or have K45 already, that you see them in Battlefield and they're like throwing, they're throwing ground at first at a trap keep, and they're throwing mounts and you're like, whoa, wait, what are you doing? Like, that's not exactly the best thing to be doing, because like they'll just do the siege range mount ground because that's what they were taught. They don't check the reports to see if all the troops are dead or if they made it through. They don't understand why they're doing it. They understand what they're doing. And that's the exciting thing about this game, is that if you understand the why and the how, it definitely gives you, it's the key to winning. And of course the game, that makes you hate them even more, because every time once you get a handle on something, Evony changes it. Yeah, like the mechanics just now.
I definitely agree with you on the whole needing to know why you're doing it, not how. That was a big thing in my first alliance, that if I'm setting a rally or I'm doing something, it helps if you're not the only one who can do that. Because there are a lot of alliances who hey, there's one person who knows how to do that, but if everyone else doesn't know how to, it ends up being one person is putting in a lot of work where if you spread that out, I think that you could get even that much better as an alliance as a whole.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's fascinating when you said my first alliance. So you were originally in a different continent?
So
down to Neff?
No, so I started out, a little bit of a history lesson. I started out on server 133. It was a very small server, I will say. And for a while, I sort of jumped around. I had a lot of people who so graciously gave me accounts and said, like, hey, come play with us. And after a while, one of the first players of Neff Minimags ended up wanting to quit. And he said, hey, you're going to play my account until I sell it. And so I said, okay. And so that sort of started about a 6-month period of me playing full-time in Neff in not even my account. And so that's sort of what got me here.
Cool.
This is Hid, by the way.
It's funny because...
FYI.
Yeah,
Sorry, Hunter, go ahead.
No, all
We should
good.
introduce 13 as well.
So that's Hid. Hid's been in Neff for... I always I feel like you've been with us forever, but I think it's been 2 years. Yeah?
Probably closer to a year and a half at this point.
Okay, so Hid's like a very similar to a Sing type player. Like, I call them like micro players. Like they're extremely fast thinking in Battlefield. Like they're gazelles on the field. They are super fast at setting rallies, being in rallies, like just super skilled on the field. And he can like come into a battlefield we're having and we're losing, and he can turn it around and help us win. Like has a great eye on in the field. So Hid's just like I'm always trying to learn from him because it's not a natural aptitude for me. Like I'm more of what 13 and I call a macro player. So I'm looking at long-term goals for the alliance and seeing the big picture. So it's great to have Hid. It's just like part of this, I think, trifecta you need to have a good alliance. So 13 is probably one of the quietest players in Neff, but he's the absolute brain behind Neff. He took a small to medium coining alliance and brought it like all the way up. So he's and if you knew his keep, like we're 4 years in 13 or 5, like 4.5.
4.5. Yeah, 4.5.
October of 2019.
Okay, so Neff's been around it'll be 5 years in November, and we've had a good run. Like we haven't had, I think we've had like great longevity, and a lot of it is I can attribute to 13's. Like he can really see kind of where the game is headed and make adjustments. Like I feel like a step ahead. And I don't want to flex too much on you, but you have like his keep is like he was VIP 20 4 years in and hit K45 all T16s unlocked. Like the guy's like crazy. Like it's like it makes me feel bad about like what I've spent in the game. Still waters run deep with this guy. So if we can crack him open a little bit, he will. I think we need like keywords like mixed march theory that could get him talking. And well, I think you spent 4 hours telling me about your mixed march theory, that the game's giving us hints for like sending mixed.
They are.
Yeah.
They have been.
Yeah. He told it was last year. He's like, he sat me down and he's like, okay, so like the game's telling us some things and I'm listening. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Four hours later.
Thing about Evony. That is so interesting that they do that. They always try to hint at, with all their events, if you pay really close attention, they're trying to tell you this is where you should be.
Yep.
So true.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's been going on for a while at this point, and everybody has always said like, oh, the devs have no idea what they're doing, like they don't know what their own game is. And if you actually take a look at it and you look at what they're doing, it's like they might have a clue of what they're doing. Like I think a great example is like all of the subgens that they've been releasing recently have had a lot of debuffs that a lot of players have been looking for. And it's like, sure, they're probably doing that so that they can get more money out of it, but that's because they know that's what players need. That's what they know people are going to spend on.
Yeah. That was honestly one of the things that just got me, that I left the C4 Discord a while ago, because there were people in there from MolderCon. It's just like, every time I'd say something, they would just, it was like, how dare you come up with your own idea and not let us be the gatekeepers of it. And I just got tired of it. And one of the ones was the reinforcing. You know, a year ago, everybody was reinforcing with qualified generals. They were using generals that had buffs that were only attacking or marching. And all the reinforcement, I'm like, look, I did the math out, and people were all using Ludwig Alessandra to reinforce with. I'm like, that's literally the same buffs if you reinforce with Baybars. And they had a Dimitri for a reason. They had a Dimitri, and then they came out with the reinforcing generals. All of a sudden, everybody's like, oh yeah, if you're not reinforcing with either a universal or reinforcing general, you're going to get crushed. And, you know, for a while there, you could cut through 30 million reigns like a hot knife through butter with no problem, because all those reigns buffs were garbage. And as soon as they switched over, all of a sudden the game changed to a reinforcing defensive game. And people were not paying attention, you know, and it was very vexing to see people pouring everything they had and ranking generals based on this one role for attacking, when most of the game is reinforcing and or holding a tower, holding a throne, whatever, and not understanding that if you don't have the right general, you're just fodder is all you are.
Yeah, that's like 90% of our battlefields right now, and we're playing at a tier where like there's two places where the most progressed keeps are found. One is All Stars, and the second is like top tier alliances. And like people watch the YouTubes and they're like, you guys are just like playing Portals the whole time. I'm like, 'cause that's the game right now for us. Like it's Portals and reactive raining. Like those are like 95 mil rallies are being slung. Like you gotta get the right reigns in. So we do have gens for joining rallies, like presets, and then a preset for raining, because they're very different things, and then buildings, right? So
see, that's why
you okay with that
because
too?
of that, that's why I usually pair, and the game is telling you something again. Usually whenever you talk about which generals pair with what, it's usually going to be a universal general with a qualified general. Right? So many times it's like, so at least you have at least one general active that's going to jack up your buffs for reinforcing. And it's funny, I emailed CS, and by the way, when you go back to you're talking about how vexing and people think the developers don't know what they're doing, I guarantee you that has a lot to do with the CS team the customer support team that they have, because like you will message some of these people and it's actually half of these interactions are almost hilariously disappointing. You know, like I had like one of those people that set up farms on your server come onto my server. I want to sell you resources by stealing all your bosses and selling you the same resources you would have gotten. And we reported them, and they like literally said, "We're going to suspend you for buying resources." I'm like, what? I'm like, who the hell? Who are you? Like, what are you? I'm like, please give me somebody with the intelligence higher than a potato that I can speak to like immediately. Like, I'm reporting somebody. Like, what's wrong with you? And it's just like, that's so Evony CS. And I think that's why people just kind of think lesser of the developers. But I got to tell you, knowing what they've designed, it's like evil genius kind of brilliant. You have to give them that.
Oh, like 100%. And like most games, like, I mean, you even take something like Clash of Clans, the developers tell you everything that's changing. Like, they'll be like, this is a new fucking Inferno tower. This is what it does. And it gives you all the stats. It tells you exactly what it does. It's a mystery in Evony. And I think that's why a lot of us are here, because that's really fun. Like, it's really good for my brain to, like, figure it all out. And that's why it's hard to, like, find a replacement for this game, because there is so much of that mystery of, like, trying to figure it all out. So some of us are, like, acting like developers to try to, like, crack the code of like what's going on. And yeah, I mean, that's when like I think the arguing and gatekeeping starts, of like people's own like cracking of the code. But yeah, so we want to talk about, it's a huge topic, but we do want to talk about building a keep. It could be like 20 episodes, but we do want to like start a little bit about how to build a keep. And Wick, you mentioned like people are reaching out to you like nonstop about building a keep, and
it's getting out of hand. Like, it's honestly like demotivated me to make videos, and it's like I mean, I have random people message me on Discord, hey, love your video. I'm like, oh, thanks, it's really nice. They're like, oh, hey, I'm a 2 billion keep K38, and what should I build? And I'm like, what? No, I don't want to build your keep. I don't want to build my keep. Like, what makes you like it's literally like saying like, hey, can you come do my homework for me? Like, and personalizing your keep, like choosing what way you're going to design your keep, I think is such a personal choice. It's not like asking me to do your homework. It's like asking me like what your favorite color is, because the keep build is such a it literally, I think it defines you as a player. Do you build something out that is going to be tanking as a ground troop? And by the way, Evony changes it so that I feel like it favors ground-based defense versus siege-based defense versus based defense every 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they make those changes knowing that they're going to force players to spend money to kind of chase their tail. Like, oh no, now it's gone to here. Like right now, I've always been a siege-based scheme, favoring ground-based defenses. And it's interesting because they changed the mechanics of K45 where the ground troops start in front of the mounted now at battles. So what you see is that they didn't change. I don't think they necessarily changed the mechanics in terms of speed. I think they changed the placement of the troops where they start so that ground gets hit first. And I think it's created a change so that siege has a tougher time because they get a head start on the siege troops. So it All Stars, the last one, was a rude awakening for me because I went into it as a fresh K42, and I was taking rallies at, I think I was 40 billion or 45 billion at the time. I was taking rallies, I think they hit me with a 103 million troop rally, which I didn't think it just blew my mind. I'm like, wait, we're at 100 million already? I was like, weren't we at like 50 like a season ago?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like it sucked because I got that was first targeted because I was one of the weaker, lower keep fat keeps to go.
Yeah.
But that what ended up happening was I have those attacks, I have those battle reports saved, and this is the key to keep building. If everybody wants to know exactly how to build a keep, the easiest way to know exactly how to build your keep is these battle reports in Battlefield. Right, you lose billions and billions of power, but you can take a close look at those battle reports and say, okay, what held, what did well, what did terribly, and what were my vulnerabilities. And for that reason, I always recommend people just, my canned answer, and it's the truth. Now, if you're going to build a keep, if you're going to build anything, I think, in the game, I think you have to start with a trap keep. You start your keep as a trap keep so that you're not losing all that top power, and then that's like building the skeleton first, or the scaffolding, and then stacking on from there. I think that's the way to do it, and then basing it upon what kind of defense you want, essentially who your wall generals are going to be. Is it going to be a siege general? Is it going to be Brock with the mounted ground now? I mean, like there's all these different types of wall generals to choose from that essentially you can base where you want to put your meat, and then they have to understand that the people that are hitting you are going to be hitting you with a certain type of troop, because no matter what build you have, you're going to be vulnerable to something.
Right. So, like when you're, what I find kind of challenging is like all the other variables. Like, what's your budget? What's your alliance like? Do you want to solo? Do you want to like join rallies? Like, there's so many different things, and then if you're talking to a C6 player, that everything's going to change for them. Like their alliance is going to change, like their whole server is going to, I would say like we have like 5% of our original server left after we merged. Like that's it. So like it's hard to guide these players, and then it's like, what is your budget like? But like, is that a 2-year budget, or is that like you using your tax return for the next like few months and then you're done? So it's hard to guide players, and then I said this earlier this week to you guys, like I'll see so many keeps that are like for sale or just like VIP 18, 8 months in, shit buffs, like just punching fucking packs, like no, like, and that's a whole nother animal is smart coining, and that took me a long time to really get. But so how do you even start with a player that's like, do you gather like all those other variables, or do you just do like a basic, this is a trap, start here?
I think that's the $1,000,000 question, right? Is Sing's definitely was out ahead with that term. I think smart coining, right? In terms of people not wasting money on things that, and I think it boils down to the very essence of smart coining is people saying, hey, okay, you can spend money on X, Y, and Z. There are certain things in the game that remain and are permanent to your keep, and there's certain things in the game that can be taken from you or you can waste. And I think the craziest thing that people will spend money on is a ton of resources for troops, and then you end up killing them, and then you have to buy them again for SVS, or yeah. you're just literally on a hamster wheel is what they call it, right? You're just like spending and not getting anywhere. And smart coining really, I think, to me, is people who realize that you're getting the most buffs for the least amount of money. I see people spending, it's so wild how the game will come out with something that's $600 to give you an extra 10% buff, and people are all over that. And I'm like, you could literally spend that on gems and refine and get 100%. And they don't, it's just bizarre to me how some people don't recognize that the Evony's doing that to them, and they have the easy buys of X, Y, and Z for this buff, and I'm like, that's a crazy amount of money to spend for a very little buff.
Do you think that's a psychological thing, or do you think that just they don't know?
Absolutely. I think it's psychological. Is it's like the mouse and the cheese. They just see buff, they see easy purchase. Oh, it's just throw a little money at it, get the buff.
Yeah.
I would honestly say that if you are going to, there's a way, and it sounds like you said 13 is perfect at it. That you can spend money prudently and not wastefully, and have a much better keep, rather than seeing these people with VIP 22 and they're only K39 and 1,500% buffs, and you're like, wait, where did that money go? Like, where did they
and I'm like, I don't think it's like an intelligence issue. I think it's like an impulse issue, right? So like having, like, yes. I think a big role of mine in NEF as R5 is like getting people to like fucking stop being impulsive. Like, keep Electra until you have everything for that new Archgen. Like, just wait it out. Correct. And it's really hard, and sometimes I'm like, like I'm boring because I just make people wait it out. But
what's really mind blowing though? What's really mind blowing for me for the last 2 months? So when I got my server, what I think is really mind blowing for me is I got really lucky to have a lot of coiners in my native server. Like, we haven't recruited it. Sing's our first recruit from outside our server. And I've got, like, I think 20 cake keeps in my alliance. It's really wild.
20. Holy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how many bucks.
I think we got the most free to play players possible in any alliance ever. Truly. Like, it was like, there's like 15.
So here's the wild part. So I'm sitting there, like, we're going up into these battles, and I'm like, there's something off here. So I picked one of the players who I know is like VIP 20. And he was only like, I think, K39. And I went into his keep. I said, look, can I please go into your keep? I went into his keep, and I think 6 hours later, he had an extra 400% buffs across the weapon. He had hero gear unbuilt. He had the scrolls for the hero gear and unbuilt.
So a hoarder?
Dragons that had never been fed. It was wild. I'm like, whoa, wait, what?
So like, a hoarder, or like because like there's hoarders, and then there's guys with like no ascended generals, like none, and you're like, what? What?
I just think that there's all these. That the problem with Evony is there are so many. I mean, think about, like, just since you started playing, right? Like what a general was, right? Like then they came out with specialties, then ascending, now it's covenants, and it's almost like deafening noise. Like it's just so many things that they forget to look under. I just found a place where I mean, for instance, I didn't realize they finally allowed you to ascend duty general gear, finally.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting on like 14 things of each duty general gear. I'm sitting there like it's useless, I can't use it. And I went and looked and I'm like, holy crap, you can advance refine duty general gear finally. I didn't see an announcement for that. Maybe I missed it. But now you have all those extra scrolls if you've been going anywhere near, you know, caking for, I think it's cake 3 or 4 that you get that, or 7 or something like that. And they're just sitting there and I'm like, holy crap, I unlocked like another 80% buffs across the way. And these people just it's people that spend the time. It's the time that this game really sucks the most, and it's the time that I think is even more, for some of us, more of a commodity than it is the money. To spend hours and going like, okay, I got to chase this down, and then spend hours, I mean, the refining, oh my God. So anything that makes you want to hate a game, you know, more is, I can't think of anything more than Evony's version of refining gear.
Oh, Blazons are a close second.
Yeah, Blazons are definitely up there, right? It's like, oh my God, then you get to the red one, and then you get troop load or training capacity, or like ready to, like, you know, send 8 mail or something. But they don't do any of these things. They don't know to do them. And that's the crazy thing, is like each one of these things are worth hundreds of % of buffs. And these people don't do it. I've been doing it slowly through all my heavy coiners, going through their keeps, and literally it's insane how much better of a keep they are after you know where all the keeps are. I had somebody who had 28,000 Spirit Beast seals unused. And they didn't unlock one Spirit Beast.
Hey, like, I would take hoarding over just doing dumb shit, right? Like,
it's true. That's true. Very true.
You can you're not undoing anything. Like, you have a canvas.
One of the things that you mentioned, like, time being a huge commodity at this point, and I definitely agree with that. I think one of the other things that can help is just, if you think of something that can give you buffs, you go ahead and write that down, and then create a list of everything that, like, hey, I'm going to go through. When you have time, you can look through some of them, you can look through all of them all at once. It doesn't really matter. But when you have time, sort of go through that mental checklist of, okay, here's this buff. Is there anything I'm missing, even from just the items that you have in your inventory? Because, like you said, I can't explain how many times I've gone through somebody's account, and I'm not naming names, but I'm talking about Huntress. And there's literally 20% buffs that you have to press one button.
You know what? I'm busy managing you.
That's kind of true. But it's not just her. It's across the board. There's all of these different things that... So one of the things that I did when I was K40 is I said, okay, before I go to 41, I want to hit 3K arch attack. And so I went through... And you can ask them, I was literally nitpicking 2% buffs here and there. And sure, it doesn't sound like a lot when you do something for a couple seconds and you get 2% buffs. But if you do that 10 times, that's 20% buffs. And like Wick was saying, people are paying $600 for 10%. And it's stuff like that where it's just like, if you just go through and just take the time when you have it to go through and look at what you can do.
And prioritize. Focus and prioritize, for sure.
Yep. I think that's something that not a lot of people do, unfortunately.
Well, like when
I think it's super important.
K45 dropped, right? And like Naf was like, I had like a lot of free-to-play players like hooked up on the juice, like, you know, the bot. And we were like just trying to fill these new giant warhalls when K40 happened, so we were like super pumped, and like I'm like, wow, you're like huge, you know, like not a lot of buffs behind it, but like we're filling this warhall. And then K45 dropped, and I like BK from NFG was one of the first guys to K45, and if not the first, and we matched him like that week, and he actually, I think it was Singh playing his account, and Singh probably at the time of his life, because he like, Singh, was that you on BK, like when
was this when I was solo and everything?
You fucking soloed 90% of Neff, like down to
that was bad.
It was so, we were like what?
I noticed slowly the game slipping out of her hands, and like I think there's only one thing I can do here. Is yeet.
Yeah, it was like, I mean,
But I felt so dirty. Like, I think I apologized to you, like, right afterwards, because I understood how disgusting that is.
well, like you spend
I mean,
3 years building like what you think is this masterpiece, and then Singh jumps in the battlefield and fucking flattens. There was like 4 of us left. Maybe you ran out of troops, and I was like, dude, this guy just destroyed like one of the biggest alliances in the game. Like,
how long ago was this? This was like a year ago?
when did K45 drop? Wicker 13.
Slightly less than a year ago, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the game changed.
That's February. No, that's fine.
I mean, I think like defense is working a little better now, right? From I've been seeing recently.
Oh yeah, like it's like
Yeah.
the gap is certainly closing. Like the game is actually like super. You need skill now. Like you go into Battlefield, you cannot just sling 4 rallies. Like you'll destroy your team.
It was when it was like thoughtless, big coined mega rallies like back to back, and it just like doesn't matter. 14 bill cap, 10 bill ground, and
Yeah.
just like kind of thoughtless. And I still think there's a little bit of that. I'm not as connected now, but I'm relearning the current game now with JW, and it does seem that there's a lot more thought, and that's really nice to see. But if I could just chime in on the smart coining thing real quick, just like some actionable things to take away. Like if you have a budget of like 500 a month or 1,000 a month or so, I think rather than every 2 weeks spending 500, it might make more sense to just save up a little bit on the side and go for a cake or something. You'll get more bang for your buck. Make sure you use double downs the whole time. Maybe you want to just use a triple down every Friday. Little things like this will just maximize your return in the long run. And I think Hid made a really good point about jotting down where you can get your buffs from. And if you could think of a metric like return on investment for buffs, like how much do I have to spend to get how much buff back? And JW was saying people are spending $600 for 10%. I am overwhelmed honestly as someone coming back to the game. Covenants and seals and all these. I don't know the math anymore of where you get the best value for buff. Like, is it art treasure or is it the So you guys probably know better than me, but I think generally spending time figuring out that number will help people a lot. Like take advantage of whatever budget they do have.
Yeah,
100%.
I definitely agree.
100%. What I will say is also one of the psychological games the game plays, which is weird because it's actually a bad business decision, and I did it in one of my buffs videos. There's a psychological thing where someone will see a buff that says all troops attack and think that's a 10% and say that's a 10% buff. It's not. It's actually more like an 80% buff. Because 10% all troops attack is an unqualified buff. So first of all, if you're talking about archers, that's 10% defensive and 10% marching, which covers just about everything. And not realizing that, seeing an all troops, and it's almost like lazy on the developer's part. If those guys literally listed that buff, 10% all troops attack, as 10% ranged marching, 10% ranged defending, 10% ground marching, 10% ground defending, and you listed it out, each single troop that it affects,
More people will buy
would go
it.
nuts
Yeah,
for it.
yeah. That's how.
And they see 10% all troops attack, and they're like, oh, that's a garbage buff. And I'm sitting there like, wait, what? Like, wait, I don't think you guys are seeing this. Mathematically, that's a crazy buff. Like, one of the most overlooked general subgens from the beginning is like an old school subgen was Harold. Because he's all 10%. And people are like, oh, it's 10%, he sucks. I'm like, dude, he's like 80%. He's not 10%, he's like 80%. And it's wild because people don't expand that stuff out in their head. But that's, again, what I think smart coining is. Going, oh, wait a minute, knowing you're getting great value with an all troops buff that's universal over, I would take a 10% all troops attack over a 40% solo troop buff any day.
So I have a question. If you guys could rebuild a 10 build keep with a decent budget, like you just have it, what would you do? What would you focus on?
That's a good point.
Like,
Right
all right,
now?
we'll start.
Like with
I
troop?
feel like, like if I were to restart, I'd probably try to do like ground range kind of defense. I mean, the only thing I'm really scared of is siege, but I don't know. I feel like that might be an interesting build to try with, instead of flat cav, doing flat ground. And I think
That's the mixed march stuff. 100%, bro. That's the mixed march reinforcing right now, ranged ground. is a big combo for reinforcing. And I'm seeing a lot of people building range general with an assistant ground general, holding reinforcing with that with a mixed march, and absolutely tanking.
Yeah, like the base stat for ground has always been insane. I mean, I think that's like the first solo march that started to go crazy after K40 was the ground. And I still think like a lot of people are building cav traps. I think there's room for some ground traps or ground, like even larger scaled keeps. Like there's this keep, Will Wallace. I think he's in C2 now. I'm not sure, or C3. But I think I always looked at him as like maybe competing with 13 for the best defense of the game. Like he was someone you'd never want to touch, and he literally had like 1,000 of each layer calves except for his offensive cav bullets, and didn't matter like what you did to him. His ground and range is like if you range that, you're not going too hot. Ground that, you're not doing too hot. Cav, you're not doing hot. So it's tough. Like the siege does work eventually, but you have a big 13 wall, like T13 wall, and you're just not you're not doing so hot then attacking them. So. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, is everyone still doing T1 cav flats? Is that still? Like...
I mean, it's like the most I think every event I've seen turns into a T1 cav conversation. But in 13, you can elaborate on this, but I mean, it's I don't know like how to tell a player like how long they'll be able to play with that kind of keep, but it's certainly where what we're seeing is
well, like they can play, so like that build Singh is talking about, like that's a really sick build, as long as you know how to use it, because like you're not expecting that kind of keep when you're playing, so like at first like it's gonna take some time for the enemy to like know like, okay, like what are we gonna do about this guy? Because like if you're a 10 build, you're training Siege, you're just like giving away points. Like you're right there saying like if you do that, you're trolling. And yeah, like it all depends on like the type of battlefield you're playing, the type of opponents you're facing. Because like I think Toy mentioned to me a little while ago, like a couple like hour ago, there was this dude. Yeah, there was this dude in some Discord literally asking, I kid you not. So my team is like, full of traps. Like we're like, not big, but we're trying to sling T11 rallies. What do we do? Like we have like 2 that can do it and then the rest can't. How do we do it? And I'm like, dude, you just don't do it. Like you don't do it. You have to play a totally different game. Because like the thing is like people look up to the C1 continent and they see like that style of play and they think like, okay, we can do that. But like, you have to like, look at yourself and be like, okay, wait, but I'm in C6 and I have nowhere near their builds, their experience, like, so that's something interesting to be like when you're like building a keep, you need to understand like your environment, like where you're at. Continent 1 and 2, continent 3 and 4, like, you'll see really different teams, like different sizes, like Siege is like king in C1, but it's not in C6 probably yet. And yeah, now I'm like going in a tangent.
No, it's good, dude.
We want it.
You're spot on, bro.
Keep going.
Like I said, people they have to work with what they have in hand. If they don't have it, they don't have it. I mean, that's the thing is, people think that what works for Neff is going to work for Alliance in C4 that's 30 billion in size. It's not. You have to know where your strengths are, and you have to change your strategy to it. Whenever you just pick it up out of a cookie cutter and think it's going to apply to you, that's how you lose. And that's the big thing is, people haven't gotten that yet, and that's why when people ask me like, I honestly, and it's just getting so out of hand. Like some people are like so mean about it. They're like, I mean, like the last one was so like disheartening. The guy's like, oh hey, love your videos. I'm like, hey, thanks. He's like, we played an SBS. I'm like, okay, and he goes, what should I do? I'm 6 billion. What should I build? I'm like, dude, I just want you. And he's like, can you tell me which general's better? And I'm like, I showed you how to judge these people, and he just went in this tirade of, oh, I'm so sorry I bothered the almighty Wick. And I'm like, dude, that's saying, bro.
Well, you want them to understand
Like right now, I don't have time to go through your team.
Because
sorry,
like they're
you know?
not understanding the fundamentals, and that's what you've been
You know.
teaching in your YouTube videos is the fundamentals of
Yeah.
mechanics, and they
To
want a
understand it on
shortcut.
your own. That's what I want people to do. Like my closest people I'm friends with in other alliances are people who watched my video and said, "Holy crap, you said this. That means we have to do this because this works this way." And I'm like, I'm literally like, I just came in my pants. Thank you. That was amazing. That was great. I didn't do underwear. That was the whole point of me making the videos, is for people to innovate on their own.
Yeah.
And that's one of the hugest points right now, is that I want to see, you know, like I'm like one of those, like, I'm very comfortable in an outsider role. I'm very comfortable as a disruptor. I'm very comfortable, like, undo narratives. You know, that's the kind of stuff I live for. And when everybody's doing everything this way, and I'm like, nope, there's a better way. I'm doing it this way. That's what gives you a leg up. By the way, that key that you described, Singh, what I found with those kind of people with that build, throwing 500,000 to 750,000 mount into your siege army protects your siege for a couple more turns.
I see.
So, because the troops don't move past other troops. And actually, what's better, so for SVS, I'll throw 750,000 T-15s into my siege army because of the point differential. For Battlefield, I'll make it 35 or 50,000 at 15 layers per layer, because they're using more turns to get through that mount, and you get a much better kill rate. Definitely a tip. Like, it's like, think of like those mount like your linemen, for the siege being the quarterback throwing from far away. And the more linemen you have to chew up more turns, the more protected your siege are. So that's like a huge, and then like you throw a few mount HP buffs in there, and all of a sudden your mounts gets you 5-6 more turns. I mean, I just had SVS where I think I hit a K39 for 4.5 billion with my siege march, and I'm only K43, and it was because it just chewed through their entire siege army, their entire archer army, because of all those extra. I wish I'd been smart enough to do a hit without the mount to see the difference, but next SVS, we were trying to win.
Yeah. So, I guess, like, for those that are listening, I mean, everyone's at different places. I do believe that, like, starting with just taking your time to read over reports, like, that's, and people make fun of Neff sometimes. They're like, oh, you guys are so slow. And we're like, well, you know, we're reading reports. Like, we care about making quality hits. Like, it's brainless just to fucking sling. Like, it's not my thing. Like, and we do have, like, philosophical debates in Battlefield about what to send. And then, like, adding in reinforcements, you know, it makes things even more complex. Like, is that a shitty rain? Is it a good rain? Like, and like, how's that going to impact this? And so reading reports, like, I mean, the T4 siege exploit, I guess that's what we would call it. Like, we stumbled upon that in a report, and we, like, lost our shit, and we were secretly slinging we call them 3-mans, like, it's SVS, let's do a 3-man siege on, like, this giant keep.
You guys thought of that. I was trying to remember where this came from, right?
Yeah,
well, we didn't tell anyone. We didn't tell it. Like, it was Sir Philip.
It's like super secret.
Well,
I tried not to tell anyone, and I sold a Viper one time in an SVS, and he found out.
he did, and then he made a video, and we were like, oh, what a sad day.
It's over, guys.
We were like, okay. I mean,
I think another thing for, at least on the C1 side, even before that happened, it getting out was our rallies on Styles.
yeah. He
Who at
was
the
like,
time was like a huge C1 player, and we were ripping billions off of him with 3-man siege over and over again, and he's like, what?
he's like losing his shit. He's like losing his shit. That was fun. That lasted a long time, and then you know, and like, it's like, do you share it? Do you have fun with it? Like, you want to, like, share it with the community, but you also want to, like, have, you know, like, enjoy it. So
You want to have fun.
and you're like, we took the time to look at the report, so, like, don't we get to have a little fun, right?
Yeah, you put the work in to figure it out.
Yeah, maybe we took it too far. I mean, it was a
Is
while.
this still working? Can you still do it?
I mean, no
you can
one's
still do
training
it.
them except
but people are onto it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, everyone's
It's
dismissing
a
them.
running joke now that anybody who trains T4 Siege just doesn't know what they're doing.
Bro, I remember when like you guys first told me about that. I'm remembering now. All I would do was scout big keeps to see if they had T4.
That's what we do.
And
I would just like scroll all the way down past everything. What's the T4 at? Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, it was so fun because like the keeps that thought they could be opened in SVS were like opened, and they were the ones with the juiciest, and so like we just like, I mean, it was pinging 3-mans like all SVS long, like 3-man AC, let's go.
Yeah, and it was fun at the time because, like, for example, Styles was like, at the time was like 35 billion power, while we were all like
huge.
Yeah, at the time. Yeah, we were all like 15, 17 bill, and we saw him open, and we're like, okay, like, seems like he doesn't know. And it's like, let's just bring 3 of us. And the thing is, at the time, like, that dude was just seeing 3 of us setting a rally. First thing he's making is like, he's laughing. He's like, are these guys for real? Are these guys gonna sling a 3-man rally at me? So it was, why would, I guess, like, why would you share that just when you find out, right? Like, you're having so much fun exploiting all of those super huge keeps for, like, 3 points.
I mean, that's...
But it's really funny you guys are mentioning this because, see, then when I found out about this, my biggest problem was I'm, like, all siege, right? I'm all siege, like, everything buff. I'm defensive siege. Like, my siege defensive buffs right now, I think, are 3,700%, but my siege offensive buffs are, like, 2,700. Like, I've definitely lengthened the difference, so much so that people would hit me with siege, and they'd stop, because my first siege was tank.
Mm-hmm.
I built out about 1 billion of T4 down siege so that when they hit me with their first siege, they would get this false sense of, oh, he's going to hemorrhage points now. So you can actually use it against people by building out. If you're trying to lull people in, that you leave that bait there so that then they throw. So that right now everybody's doing is T11 first, right? So they T11 my T4 down. They go way positive, and they're like, okay, now it's time to throw the T15 as at them, the big siege at them. And then I go way positive.
And like, what percent of people are like going in for a second hit? Like 90?
Yeah, at least. That's the thing. So now that it's on the podcast, I know nobody's going to call anymore.
And that's human behavior right there, right?
The 102 million WDF hit, the tips from WDF and Hodler on his team, the 2 K44s, that T11 hurt. I'm not going to lie. I was not prepared for 102 million T11. That one hurt bad. So, I mean, that was that. But the one thing I'll say is one of my most prized possessions in the game, and I will pull it out and study it at least once a week, is pulling out that battle report. I mean, I should probably share it, but I'll probably post it into the Discord so that you guys can look at it. But looking at what troops held against what, and looking at what level troops held against those T11s, has made me kind of rethink a lot of my build strategy. And I've definitely made a lot of improvements to try to be able to take one of those 102 million T11 hits and or rage. So it's fascinating. Like I said, I was talking to Sing about. I think I went over this. Me and Sing were talking about this last week.
And it's interesting because do you want to share the details or you?
Yeah, I can. I can. What was mind blowing about the T11 siege was how many T10 and T9 siege killed. And by looking at the report, seeing that T9 and T10, once in range, really started killing with no deaths on my side, I'm like, wow, if I want to defend against that, this is like the warp zone version of building your key. This is why people it's so bizarre to me that people don't want to get hit. I love getting hit in Battlefield because it gives me those reports to mull over. It's like waterproofing a boat. Like you said, it in the water and find out where the holes are to plug it in. Looking at those battle reports, I'm looking at, okay, the T11 took out a lot. Why were they around for so long to be able to take out some of my T13s? And you see in detail that, I'm like, wow, okay, so at this rate, I have 20 million T10 siege. If I can get it up to about 100 million, I know it sounds like a lot, I should have been able to swallow this attack whole and not gone the 2-to-1 power ratio. And knowing it, building it, and then seeing it, trying it out in the next battlefield is so exciting to me. That's like what the game, and that's what keep building is.
It's being
It's
curious.
knowing-
Yeah. It's being curious and learning. Yeah. And not like you have to get banged up to like figure it out. I mean, how much do like 13 hit, how much do we learn from a win compared to a loss? Like, I mean, the losses, like we become such a better team when we like not just like we like break the loss down and figure out like truly roast each other in a very loving way, like on a call, and like where we all fucked up. But like that's like, so if you want to build a keep, like start getting hit, and like who the fuck cares? Like that's how you learn. Like I was so afraid at first, like because I had a a server that was I was new, and there was a lot of older players that ended up on that server. But then I was like, fuck it, and I just started taking hits, and like just I think being curious might be the best thing in this game, is just being open and curious about like why things happen. That's it. Like that could be like, if I could choose one attribute to have in the game, it'd be like to stay curious.
Yeah, 100%.
Using a recent example, we've been facing RSP a lot recently, and from what I've heard from them, it sounds like they've also been doing similar things where after the battlefield, we've been watching it back. We've been saying like, okay, even like listening to our calls and saying like, okay, what did we do wrong? Why was this spot a little rough? What could have gone better? And I think that that's something that's super important, in which you might not have your calls recorded, so you might not be able to watch them back, but just thinking about like, hey, even on that level of like, okay, what as an alliance can we do better, as well as like everybody's been saying, your own keep level of when you get hit, looking at those reports. And I think the one thing that would be beneficial if you get out of this is, like Hunt said, stay curious, look at how you can do things better. Don't get sad just because you took a bad hit. It happens. That's how you learn.
Word.
And
100%.
I think that especially like even just in general nowadays, there's a lot of information that is just like, hey, if I ingest all of this information, I should be great at it, right? And it's like that won't always be the case, because you have to think about why things happen. Somebody can tell you why they happen, but you likely won't be able to actually fully understand it until you do it yourself and figure out for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I want to, like, motivate everyone to, like, most of you, like, I know a lot of people, like, they look up to, like, the big alliances and they ask questions, but I want everyone to, like, before you do that, like, just, try to, like, do some digging yourself. I think, like, we don't know how your reports are looking. We really don't know, like, what's going on. And the only person that knows that is, like, it's you, right? And I think, like, everybody, if you're still playing the game, if you've been playing it for, like, over a year, like, you've developed, friendship, and you have teammates, like, like, sit down with them, talk reports. It's not that hard. Like, it's really fun. And, like, once you start, like, doing it yourself, that's how you truly learn. You won't learn by people just telling you, like, oh, yeah, that's what happened, and you should do this and that. And you're going to be like, okay, cool. And then you'll probably do it, and then something's going to happen, and it's not going to work. So, like, please just, like, read reports. It's not hard. Like, dig deeper. Find people to read them with you.
That's good life advice. That's not even just good game advice. That's just life. Like, you don't just do something because everybody else is doing it.
Exactly.
Know why you're doing it. Like, it's like in medicine. If you knew how dangerous some of these doctors are and are doing stuff, and I'm like, why'd you do that? And they don't know why they're doing it. And I'm like, you just literally just caused my patient to bleed out. And I have to take him to the OR now because you just gave this medication that you didn't know why you're giving it orthodox. Like, it's just such good life advice. It's not just the game, but and the game it exemplifies it. People are going to just send siege range mount ground, and your first siege doesn't go anywhere near touching all their siege. Your range is going to get chewed up. Your mount's going to go down, and it's just going to be a nonstop. You're just spinning your wheels. And the other thing that back to what you were saying, My motto for everybody is what kills you makes you stronger. You want to be hit. You want to have those reports. And anybody who's always dodging, you're up by 100,000 points in battle. And they're coming at you to hit you. And you're boarding out of the way. I mean, it's just so wild to me. I've seen people doing this. Or you're down by 100,000. You should be begging to go take the big hits so that you can look at that battle report and say, okay, where did they get the biggest positive kills? Where did they get the least kills? What held? And whatever layer you have that shows nothing got killed, but it killed millions, that's the layer you need to make thicker to defend against that next time. Mm-hmm. And that's the easiest Warzone personified, personalized way I can tell anybody to build their team. Is go into a battlefield against something big, get hit hard, and take a look at that report. And if you're not doing that after every battlefield, you're leaving knowledge on the table. And then you're going to ask me, I mean, how do you know I'm not like one of those jagoffs who wants to sit there and give you bad advice? I mean, I almost want to be like, yes, build lots of T12 and T15 mounts as much as you can. Don't bother building any siege. How do you not know I'm going to do that to you?
So
you can't take everything with a grain of salt.
I think some people might be afraid to use their resources or build in the wrong direction. They might have some kind of reservations because of that. But I mean, even with that, I think it will incentivize you more to think about it, right? Because you're limited on your resources, you're limited on what you can use to grow your keep. And if you paid money for it, you have this incentive to really sit down and think about this properly. And if you make a mistake, good, you learned something while you were building your keep. You went in the wrong direction, that's okay. There's I remember back in the day, Max had built, not even back in the day, bro. This is when the T11 thing came out, killing T4. Max had built out a billion T1 siege. And this is why I loved him, because he was kind of 13, he would, and you guys, he used to think a lot and just try things based on, I think this is going to be a good idea. And this is also why I love JW, because this dude is always thinking I think this is going to be a good idea, let me just try it. Mm-hmm. And he had to backspace, he had to control alt delete what he did, and he wasted all those resources, but at least he tried, at least he's making an effort to either be a pioneer or learn how to do things properly. It's all about the curiosity, like Hunter said, and that's the fuel. And I don't know, there's that book I'm thinking about, Think and Grow Rich. Literally just think and just give it a shot and believe you can do it. And I reckon you'll probably head in the right direction at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing I would like to add is this is definitely not us saying don't take advice from people. Because I think that everyone here can name at least one person who has essentially been their mentor while playing this game. And, I have one person who essentially taught me as much as I needed to know until I got to the point where I could make those decisions and think for myself. So.
And what you guys have in Neff, which is really strong, is you guys bounce ideas off each other, and a teacher is just someone who just kind of talks at you. I feel a mentor is someone you talk with in a way, where you're sharing hey, what do you think about this, or you sort of learn more in an engaged way, where you're, as a student of the the mentee, you're also kind of putting forth ideas and just getting some feedback, and maybe this person has experience with that, and I might be thinking hey, I want to build I don't know, 100 million T15 siege or something. I don't know, there's something silly, and someone might have some experience. Hey, I've ran that test before, doesn't work. I've hit these keeps, it doesn't work, and learning in that way, I think is a positive thing.
Yeah, and it all kind of goes back to just skill sets for me, and critical thinking skills are super important in this game. You do have to be able to think for yourself, and critical thinking is something I think and at least as far as I know in the Western Hemisphere, it's not taught. There's some progressive schools that are doing it, but in general I think the population isn't really working their critical thinking skills, right? And that's can go back to you know, taking a child that's like super curious and just like making them sit in a seat and learn this way. But and like I wonder too, like all of you here, like you somehow kept your critical thinking skills, like you kept them going. And so we wanted to talk about building a keep. It's like a huge subject, but I think if there's anything, like this first episode is about, like, be curious, like don't be afraid to fuck up, use critical thinking skills, and you know, find a teacher that's like, I mean, hey, a 20 question quota a day is not bad. I was like happy with that with my teacher, like, okay, cool. Like, and then, you know, eventually, like I was teaching him things because I stayed really curious about stuff. But I mean, I really love team building. Like that's where I like really nerd out, is just like, how can I build this team of like all this fucking money? Well, I mean, we have a lot of free to play players too, but like, how do I get this team to work and function and not have so much ego, and make everyone feel like they have a place here? So like, that's what I really like to like experiment with and see what works. And I think, and we can talk about this another time, of course, but like a 13 hour talking about like a trifecta of like what a player can work on, and then what an alliance can work on. And we don't need to get into it, but I feel like it kind of breaks down into like macro playing, micro playing, and like mechanical playing. And like, if you can work on all those three aspects, like as a team and then as like an individual player, like you can take, again, like I really wanted you guys to know that like we took a fucking shitty small medium coined alliance, like, and just kept like going up the ranks. And like, it's so hard to like, I mean, it's like 1% of the game can like really recruit all that coin into one alliance and like be good and like be winning. So like, if you want to take your alliance places, like you can. And I think you have to really focus on certain things and like stop chasing after those wows and start like looking at your like mid-coin players and like working together on the battlefield. Like that's something like Nef's always done. But that's a tangent in itself. Let's talk about Shalans a little bit, because I am really sheltered and I don't know, like, I know like, okay, Neo C6, right? Neo's alliance. C5 is 10L, and
C5 has a bunch of teams.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, C5 is crazy, I'm hearing.
C4 is WDF, C3 is Val. Like these are all I know. I'm like, I live in like a really small bubble. And then C1 is like all the finalists are playing in semis together. So like, if that's like sticking, is it sticking the ranks? Like, is it true? Is GOT
curious, Aunt?
Is GOT, Respect, and Hot all playing together like before finals? Is that true?
I mean, supposedly it is. The chat is off, so you're not gonna be able to see if anybody's responding. But
I think ranks
so
are
far,
set.
It does seem that it's like, you know, it's set on stone. Like it's happening. That's the semifinal.
Jeez.
Yeah, the mergers are coming into play too, so you're going to see a resurgence of like 2 30-place teams coming into the top 5 now. So it's like the mergers are coming into play.
Woo.
And right now, what I would say with Shalon is you're seeing the teams with K44s and 45 really setting them out. But you know, the good news is that once you get to K45, outside of T16s, that's where you're going to stay, and everybody else is going to catch up. So I think that right now, this Shalons in particular is really the K45 Shalons, like the teams with the heaviest keeps. There's just nothing you can do about it whenever someone's hitting you with 4,700% bounce.
Oh, don't we know it? Like, we are like slinging 3,300 at our opponent. Like, I have the second best offense buffs in Nef, and I bumped up from 3,300, but like, so like, we gotta try to outsmart them and outplay them because our buffs are not like at the 4K mark yet. And now they're like 4.7, and I'm like, okay, but caps do buff, or I mean, buffs do cap. So, and like, so we're like you know, that's kind of like our mantra, like, but buffs do cap out at, like, even for a moment before the game's like, oh no, like the coiners have run out of, like, they have nothing left to
More
spend
numbers.
on. Yeah. But like there is like, and so like we're seeing the gap close a little bit, and like so Neff's kind of like, we have a lot of T16s and we're going to be opening a lot of T16s, so that's like kind of what we're going to be working with until we get more buffs behind our troops. But anyway, Shalon, so I'm curious at like, so my issue is like, I know like the one finalist that's like won like WDF, but like who are the other three that are likely to be finalists in like C4? Like Wick, you would know more.
Oh, Wick disappeared.
No.
Oh, sorry, I'm here. I had mute down because I'm getting text. I have a question for you, and this has come up a lot in our conversations in our alliance. See, and this is all due respect to RSP and WDF and F. You know, a lot of these alliances are alliances that, and it's much more understandable, I think, in C1 and C2 as alliances died and people quit, and their keeps are there rather than delete the keep. You get somebody from another server to come and play, coin it, and jack you up. When you have an alliance that's made up of all these people from other servers that were on, like, you know, like the one K40 that was on a server that could never make All-Stars, never make Shalons, was stranded there, no merger in sight, and they're like abandoned that one for a K40 in this one alliance. You have an alliance that's almost like an All-Star team. And your native alliance, that's the one you were given and the one you built and the one that you were with, and is it fair, right? Is it fair to have a team that has all these recruited players who are heavy coining and good players and build a mega team like that and just dominate, and then all these other alliances that are like the native people? I mean, I'll tell you what I tell myself, easy and hands down, I love my team. I mean, when I was in RSP, I remember Des getting really pissed at me that I wouldn't leave my old server and leave my old key. And I'm like, that's like that becomes like your family, you know. Like these are people that you talk to every week, and you know what's going on. We had a guy who had a baby, and then they couldn't get formula, and everybody in the alliance went out to the store, found formula, and sent it to this guy. And like, these are your friends. We hang out in real life, you know. Like I have a box of differential, and I'll have Devils games. I'll have a bunch of players come out and come to a Devils game. The people in my alliance, I consider them like family. I love each and every single one of them. You don't want to leave them, and you wouldn't rather see any one of them replaced with anybody. I mean, we had Hulk quit, and Singh was, thank God, jumped in, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, you get this natural attrition. That's one thing. I think it's another thing whenever you literally build one ground up. You find 12 stranded players, and you have 12 guys who are going to be VIP 24 and K44 just dominating. I'm not taking away any wins or talent, because you can do that, but you have to be good. WDF is fucking good. I mean, I'm going to give you that. Like, those Tibbs is and I forgot the other guy who runs rallies with them.
Cream's super good rallier.
Yeah, they're like lightning. Like, but when you see that rally set on you and land on you, I'm guessing it's no more than 4 seconds, 4 to 7 seconds. Right? My alliance, we're at like 9 to 10, and we're really happy with that. So when somebody's that fast, you can call for range. They're not even going to settle in your key. So the speed plays. I'm not taking anything away from that, but like I said, I think it's an interesting phenomenon to see the human aspect of it, of people jumping servers, people jumping and not wanting to leave, and not. I mean, RSP was, you know, one of the best in the game, and whenever they're saying we want you here full time, you take it as a big compliment, but you're also like, that's my family, you know, like that's like my friends. And
this is so interesting. It's such an interesting thing to hear your perspective, because, you know, we talk to players, and I didn't want to recruit. It's actually HOT that kind of started the trend of like, people just flocked there and wanted to play with, like, you know, the best. And then from there, I think it just kind of became really like in its own meta of just like recruiting, like almost in a corporate style. Like, you make a Discord, you make your Discord part of it open to everyone, you invite everyone, and then you start building relationships and recruiting. And like, it never used to be like the first question is like, well, how many cakes a year do you do? Like, and it's so, and Nephi just wanted us to like be the OGs of, and it got to a point where we were just like, we can't progress anymore with where we're at, like with the coin we have. Like, so do we stay like this? And then like organically there was players that were starting to feel really bad. Like, I'm a liability. And like, it was like true, you know, they were a liability. So what do? Are we cool? But like, I want to keep progressing. And so it's been a really hard year. And it's so interesting because like we'll talk to a player and like they're like investing all this money and their alliances, it's not like no one knows who they are. And I'm like, why wouldn't you come and like have like all-star type battlefields every week and they like can't leave their server? It doesn't make any sense to me. But now that I hear your perspective, it makes so much more sense, because like it was frustrating. Like you're like a VIP 24 and like everyone else, like you're 80 bill and everyone else is like 4 bill. Like you obviously don't know about lateral growth at all. Like I start like this whole like very judgy, dialogue in my head, but I don't think about like the connections that they're making and how that's like their team family, and so it's interesting to hear you say that, Wick.
I mean, I'll tell you flat out, I would rather come in whatever place we finish. We're not even going to finish top 16. We came in second last week. I think we'll probably make 17, but we got matched with three monsters last week, so 2 monsters also.
Like,
but I'd rather finish wherever we finish with my team than go to a team of all-stars that I feel no bond to.
Yeah.
And no
synergy and
then finish first. I'm very content with however we finish.
I'm like so fascinated right now. Like, like you're super driven. How is it, like, is that?
No, this subject is like really interesting for me because I was partially the voice initially in RSP of like, yo, we got to keep the culture, like we got to keep the chat active, like it's about the positive energy and having fun. Mm-hmm. And then slowly over time, I saw myself grow so competitive and seeing all these big teams, and I just like I don't know, like it's like I crushed that empathetic part of me, and I was like, I'm sorry, like we've been friends for 2 years, but you're VIP 16, and like there's this big keep that's interested, and I like, what do we got to do to make this happen? And I don't know, it felt like a corporate takeover.
Yeah.
Eventually I felt like this is not fun. Like, this is such a rat race. This is just, it just felt less fun for me over time. And I don't know, and then just the way the game was updating, like at the time when I quit, it was, I don't know if it still is, but it was very heavily toward just like how much can you spend really, and how big of a rally can you send, and how many big buffs are in there. And I love everyone at RSP, like I still like, think about them every now and again. I don't really talk to many too much right now, but I just saw the conversations around me be like surrounded by spending, how much you can save on these packs, and like different like programs and like events, and I don't know, I just felt like the conversation about mechanics and like just talking about anything random just sort of started to simmer down, and it was, for me personally, the experience wasn't the same, and I could see like this cycle happen to like some teams. Like, I feel like when you get to a really high place, you sort of like the drive is gone. Like there's no objective. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if you remember. Like I feel like HOT died down because they probably got bored. Like it was all competitive energy that was driving that alliance. It was pure competition, and I'm sure they're still amazing. But when I think they did fall from the top a little bit because they were there for a while, and
saying a keep. And I think the only reason he took ours was because we have fun. Like, I've got a British guy who's always like doing something funny. I've got a soccer mom who curses like a trucker. I've got a
a lawyer from
the Asian
Germany.
people who don't know, like, who don't speak English, and I'm speaking Chinese to them. It's like, it's hilarious.
Literally, he sets in English and sets in Chinese right after.
That's incredible.
It's crazy.
And people are laughing, you know?
Yeah, so it's then like you kind of realize like there's a moment where you realize like this is a game. Like this is actually a game. It's not a sports team. It's not work. It's a game. It's supposed to be an enjoyable experience. And I think there was some kind of breaking point where I realized like okay, like this is not helping me as much as it's hurting me.
Yeah.
And, like this crazy desire to be like sacrificing everything to kind of like be at the top,
Yeah.
including like your life and everything, like the time. Like I remember like my brain was like I'd say 10 hours a day thinking about Evony, like how to get more people, like how to build the team a little bit better, like, and it slowly became less about mechanics and more about like recruiting and I don't know.
Yeah, it starts to feel ick. It's like ick. And we've had more turnover enough this year than ever before. And the team we have now, I'm like, can everyone just stay? Like, just don't go anywhere. Like, please, like synergy and team building is so like at the core of NEF that like I just need everyone just to stay here. Like I can't do any more. Like no one can leave. Okay, it's Hotel California. You can't leave. Yeah. So it's like I think we're good where we're at. Like I can't keep like replacing players for VIP. Well, we don't have anyone over 23, and I don't want to change that because we're outliers and I want to keep us that way. I don't want to have like all massive buffs. Like it's fun to take out a team that has like way better buffs than you. Like it's the most satisfying thing for me, at least, like possible. So in the game. And so like but it's been a really challenging year with that. And so I just want to like bond with like, I mean, we lost Mikan who started NEF with me.
No way.
And he was getting one shot, and it was so crushing. And I'm like, and now, he's filling and I want him with us all the time, like filling, but it's like, it's just like really hard. And then like, I don't think I've stopped to just slow down and be like, is this what we want? Like, and we've gotten like such a, like attracts like, you really attract players that like fit with you. Like we just got a new player, Raven, and he's like so like he has Neff's heart, like, and I think he's gonna be like such a great addition.
I hear exactly what you're saying, and that's exactly my point. Is like I said, I'm actually dreading the day that if VHR our alliance does come in first, because I know what'll happen. I will lose interest in the game.
Yeah,
I actually like okay with us like coming in 17th again is going to be annoying, but it'll get me driven to go get better. Yeah, and right, it's good not to come in first. Because when you go, you mentioned Clash of Clans before. I remember I wanted to break top 50. I played that game.
That was like my starter game.
I wanted to break top 50. I hit 49th and gave my keep away the next day.
Yeah.
In the world rankings, and I was like, that's it. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And that's like what I'm afraid would happen with this game.
I think that the important thing is, which I hate to go back to this again, but always having someone that, like, you're like, okay, we're fighting against these guys pretty often, and always having someone to look to be like, okay, this is who we want to be. And then sort of, you step up, and then there's always someone bigger until you hit that number one spot.
It's fun climbing up the ranks, and I think when you stop having fun, like I was watching Al Hef's YouTube, and they were facing Respect last weekend in Shalans, and they were having the best time. Like they were laughing their asses off, and I was like, this is what, like, I always want this. Like I want to, and if this stops, then like I can't. I want to stop. So.
Yeah, it's sort of like, what are we doing at that point?
Yeah. And like, I saw Sing's like whole. I mean, we met Sing. We were like a huge team, and Respect was like coming up the ranks. And I saw Sing's like whole, like when Hot became his. We were chasing Respect, and then Respect was chasing Hot, and that was like kind of how we were moving through for a while. And yeah, I saw and are you you're feeling like good and happy where you're at and you're not, and like how do you curb that like super competitive side of you, like?
Oh, I just took a big break from the game, and I don't know. I guess that calmed me down a lot. Just getting Evony off my mind a bit, and really just taking a huge like third party perspective in terms of life in general, and looking at the game, like GAME game, and really like I don't know. I would not want to go back to that environment, to be honest. Like, even if I were to like fill on big teams and stuff like that, it would purely be for the joy of playing Evony as a game. I don't know, like it's not worth the mental time, like the space it takes in your mind. Like, I think they call it mental real estate. It just like, I don't know, like I feel like, the leads of big teams really do sacrifice a lot, because it takes a lot to manage the people and grow the team and everything. So I don't know. I just put things into perspective. Yeah. Playing the game the way it is now, in a smaller team, feels a lot more innocent. It feels like we're not unstoppable, which is actually a great feeling. There's like learning happening all the time. Yeah. I'm not used to being in this position. It's new for me. It feels very new. And it's a bit refreshing, to be honest. So yeah, I guess, I'm taking it just fine. It feels quite all right. It's fun.
We have a lot more to cover coming. We have a lot more topics. What I would say is that you guys who are watching or listening, definitely get in the comments with things you want us to discuss.
Yeah, I was actually about to mention that as well. I think that it might be helpful if we could even make a channel and just say, like, hey, if you guys have any broad questions for us, like, hey, here's something that we want to hear you talk about, like, we think your perspective might be cool on this, drop that in there. And I think that'd be something cool that we could probably set up.
And even like bringing in some guests, like of players like we don't even know that we want to hear from, and like have a cool dialogue with, would be something in the future that I think would be really, really fun for the community.
My question for all of you before we leave, if you can make one change, I think I asked Singh the same question. We've got 3 new people here. Make one change in this game right now. What would it be?
And I have one, but like people are gonna get mad.
I'm all ears.
I'm curious.
Okay, so probably not. Maybe the game would be like super more enjoyable right now. Like what I would what I would change, it's basically a timeline thing, not a game thing. I would really enjoy if pink gems never happened.
Facts, bro.
That completely shifted the game from like really just, all that recruiting started because of that. Because one team completely abused it. And then suddenly everybody, like, teams like RSB, VIG, even like NEF, like, we were like, how are we gonna like, get to that mountain? And then all that recruiting started because of that.
Yeah.
Dude, 100%, bro. That was like, I think the game was at a point, sorry to cut you off, dude.
Mm-hmm.
But just to add to that, man, that was like the peak of like competition to be the best, at least for me. And it was like, it just was the answer to like do anything you need to do to win. And I feel like there's permanent damage from that for sure.
Yeah. It's a timeline change. Like, I think if that never happened, I think most teams would still be like literally the same players still. And it would be like really competitive style still. Like we wouldn't be seeing these monster teams completely just winning back to back to back to back. Like we wouldn't be seeing that. That's my take.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's the best one.
I don't know if I can even I don't even know if I want to say mine because that was so great.
No, sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. I would mine's really simple. I want a more educated customer service that's like, I don't mean to talk about Clash of Clans. It was my gateway game. Like I wasn't a gamer like before that. Like, and so Clash of Clans was so like, they took accountability. You wrote them. They were so generous. They like knew what you were talking about. That would be great because, okay, so Neff is not in Shalons and it's because we had a sign up issue and we wrote CS and they're like, and it was just like AI just talking back to us. And I was like, but like, we were going to be in finals. Like this, like, why would we do this to our team? And like, it was like 2 weeks of just like mindless exchanges. And so I would love for CS to be, and not so
Okay,
like.
do they send you like 2 30-minute speed ups?
I got eight. I got
Like,
eight
you're welcome.
badges. I got 8 badges. That's like I was like,
Nice.
I want
Pretty good.
I want one honor
Oh,
point.
Sick.
Yeah. But like, what are they gonna
Yeah,
do?
that-
Like redo the whole match, the whole round? Like, you know. So we were asking for something sort of ridiculous, but it's cool. It's cool to just kind of like observe, save our heals, whatever. We'll make the most out of it. But yes, CS, that's mine.
That's a good one.
Mine is significantly less cool than that. I would like for Knight's Hall to disappear and never come back.
Hell yeah, man. Preach.
We're so bad at Nights All. Holy shit, we're so bad at
That's a
it.
good one. But you gotta take it. I think I mentioned it in my video, but I'll say it again. The one thing that drives me absolutely batshit crazy is I have like 35,000 days of trap speed ups and crafting speed ups. And if I could make one place that you could exchange them, even if it's like I get 1,000 regular universal speed ups out of it, it seems like I'm being punished for coining those.
It's more use.
So regret. It's more than useless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than useless. How much stuff are you going to craft that you need 30,000 days of crafting speed ups? Like, can't I just exchange them for 10,000 days or 5,000 days of regular speed ups? It's so aggravating every time I see them.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
I'll be completely honest. I do agree with you, but like I'll just counter that with like before they like upgraded the dragons and all these talents, I was like, I have so many badges. I was feeding my dragons badges like a motherfucker. I was like, I'm not gonna need these. Like, who cares? And then suddenly they fucking released the new talents, and I'm like, okay.
that's bad.
I can't believe you did
And,
that.
yeah.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, it was pretty out of character, but I was just like, just speed racing, leveling all the dragons and whatnot. But
There's nothing more aggravating than getting rid of shit that you need later. in this game.
exactly, yep. So
Ugh.
That was
sometimes,
like
yeah, go ahead.
Civ
the
treasure.
first Civ treasures,
Yeah.
at least the first 3 levels, and then everybody except for Hunt dismissed all of the rest of them, and then they came out with new levels, and people were like, I literally dismissed
And I
10,000
sailed ahead of you guys.
yesterday.
Hoarder for life. Hoarder for life.
By the way,
You just
that's
need to-
one of the things on the keeps that in my alliance that I went into. And I go in, I'm like, why are you VIP 19? You only have
Like level
first level of
2.
those characters.
Yeah.
And I realized he's been dismantling them still.
Oh. Ooh,
Oh.
ooh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I wanted to cry.
That's
I literally
painful.
wanted to cry.
I would have cried. So
Yeah.
you're better than me.
Sing, is yours this? I mean, I devoured your interview with Wick, so I know what yours is, but is it the same?
What did I say? It was,
You were scaling, like, you remember when we played War and Order, how the packs were like,
literally that. I
Yeah.
was just, yeah.
yeah.
I wish the diminishing returns for
Yes.
coining was scaled to like 1/10 of what it is right now. Like, I feel like I want you to feel disgusted if you spend more than $500 a month, and that I feel like that would allow the game to be more about strategy and skill rather than how much money can I spend, and
Yep.
I don't know. I feel like that's
Yeah,
how
okay.
you fix it.
Diminishing returns.
Imagine reducing the price of the packs and capping all buffs. Then you would literally have an even playing field.
Yeah, bro.
That would be sick.
You have more
Yeah.
thought, more like
Mhm.
physical skill, like more. There's so much more that would be involved than
Yep.
what it is now. But that would fix the game. It would be more. The game would get revenue from a wider audience than what it's getting right
I mean, I think people would get even more, players would be even more attached to the game. Not that we want that, but if people could actually, like, use more skill playing, like, I think, instead of occupying 10 hours of your day, it would be, like, 15 in your brain of, like, strategizing,
now. Yep.
We do have the podcast suggestion channel now. Sapphire was kind enough to make one. So
What?
that anybody that has suggestions, you can
And thank you to
Just write them there.
Sapphire. Sapphire's, like, the one that resurrected this C1 Discord. I'm, like, illiterate with Discord, and she, like, fixed everything up for us. Like, she's been a star. So thank you, Sapphire. And she's made C1 like a little icon for our Discord that has a dinosaur on it. So we're doing good.
Well,
We're upgrading.
You really did that? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She knows
I
what's
was
up.
joking.
No, she like did it yesterday. She knows what's up.
Nice.
All right, cool. Well,
Yeah.
night, guys.
Okay.
Thanks.
Night, guys.
Great. Thanks for coming,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Good night, everyone.